we're live. Yes. So this
Yay.
is almost as good as it's going to get for some time now. It's almost like being there. So hi guys. Let's welcome everyone. I see a lot of people joining in, which is very nice and exciting on a Saturday afternoon. Post lunch, post Rajma Chawal, that is my Saturday lunch usually. So this is very encouraging that people have made it. And yeah, so I lead content marketing for Pepper. I'm Natasha. And today, your first session is the evolution of content marketing. And since the stage is called content marketing, it's only fair that's what we begin with. Um, so, do you guys remember the time when content literally meant nothing? And cut to now when the content marketing cannot exist without content. And on that note, today we have someone with us who's pretty much who did content marketing before the term content marketing existed, I think. She's worked at brands like NDTV, Unilever, Singtel, and is currently a senior marketing executive at a global OTT platform. Today, she's with us in a personal capacity. So, I'm going to open this out to questions later towards the end of this conversation. Let's stick to content marketing and not around the OTT platform since she's here in personal capacity. But on that note, let's welcome Dipashree Das. Welcome to Elevate, Dipashree. Woo! Like,
Yay, so exciting. My God. We were just chatting backstage that this is insane, right? Like if we were in person, this would be like so exciting. How I wish we could go back to like that life. But thank you, Natasha. Thank you to all the good folks at Elevate for having me here. To everyone who's probably sweated their guts out to make this happen. And thank you to everyone who's fought their inertia and Rajma Chawal sleep to be here at 2:30 on a Saturday. uh, to join us here. Hopefully, you find this session useful, actionable, and you can take away some good insights. Thank you for having me.
amazing. So let's start, Dipashree. Let's talk about your trajectory. You're a literature major, and then you were leading marketing for an entire region, the APAC region, right? So how do you embrace this discomfort of constantly learning, unlearning in this very rapidly changing industry of content and media?
A lot of times this question is asked, how do I go from being a literature major to whatever it is that I do right now? So you guys, you can check out my LinkedIn profile and if feel free to waste your time Googling me. So no surprise where I work. I'm just here in a personal capacity today. um, the truth is that all my life, when people ask how do we have your career, honest advice, please don't want it. Please don't want my career, want your own. I have taken a lot of risks. I didn't know those were risks when I was taking it. I was obviously much younger, and I was very clear what I wanted to do. So the reason I took literature instead of engineering and medicine, not that I was smart enough to get into engineering, I did get into dentistry, but I think it's obvious why I didn't take it, is because I really was interested in creativity, in storytelling. Okay, so I know that it sounds really smart when I say I was interested in storytelling, but I genuinely was. As a child, I would put up plays, I would direct plays in school, I would tell stories to my parents or anyone who would care to listen. And then it just, as a small town child, I'm from Shillong, there are very few opportunities. The internet came to us probably the last before it did to you, right? So the first time I used the internet was when I was in college for the first year of college in Lady Shri Ram College, right in Delhi. So I was like, what's this beast? Like, oh wow, it can connect you to this thing called Yahoo. So that's when the world opens up for you. I took literature and then I got into Unilever, of all places, to do marketing. So the two worlds collided, literature and marketing, which is also a form of storytelling, right? But then I didn't stay in that world for too long because I realized that my calling was content. So, which is why I went on to NDTV. And then several jobs later, I'd say the one element that stayed strongly with me is what I have always wanted to do. And it sounds crazy, and people say I'm very passionate. I probably am. But I think the one thing you got to keep in mind if you want to continue doing what you want to do is to always have one very clear goal. There's also another side of the camp where you can change your mind. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind. My family thinks I've changed my mind many times, but I actually haven't. My ultimate goal is still the same. The path that I've taken to that goal has changed, and there's nothing wrong in it. I don't have to justify it to anyone, right? So I have gone from marketing to content, back to marketing, and then I now do a role which marries the two world together. So you can't probably get luckier than that. So one is obviously having a very clear goal. Two is being curious. What does curiosity mean? Curiosity means that you leave your arrogance out of the door. I have 18 years of experience, but if you meet me at work and if I can learn something from you, I will do that. From the youngest member of my team, I will sit and say, what can you teach me that I don't know? Because you guys are digital natives. You were born into the era of the internet. I wasn't. I saw the internet for the first time as a small town kid and as someone who was born in the 80s as a late millennial. I've given away my age. As a late millennial for the first time when I was in college. But for you, you saw the internet when you were born. So there is so much I can learn for you. You deal with information influx far easier and far smoother than I ever can. So there is so much I can learn from you, right? So I think learning constantly is a very important skill to have. Embracing discomfort, Natasha brought that up. I think that my current company taught me. I think the current company that I'm in, which is Netflix, if you haven't already figured that out, uh, that is changing entertainment as we know it. So to be in a company like this, or to be in any of the companies that I have been, and to expect that tomorrow will be the same as today is really just kidding yourself. So I think once you get used to the fact that you will learn something new every day and that will challenge what you knew yesterday, is an amazingly uncomfortable place to be. Will I always be like this? Probably not. But am I that kind of person today? Yes, I am. So I'll just summarize this for you, which is A, having a fairly clear goal of where you want to get. Remember, the goal is uh, uh, a sort of, it's a goal, it's a destination. The roadmap can change. Don't hold yourself to the roadmap, hold yourself to the goal. Second is curiosity. If you are not curious, I'd be very shocked because this world is constantly throwing at you different kinds of options, different paths to get to your goal. And third is, I think the world in which we are, if you are not feeling a little uncomfortable, I'd have to wager that you have stopped learning, right? If you read an article on AI that doesn't make you feel uncomfortable, that you don't know very much about it, and you got to want to find out, I'd say you have become a little arrogant and complacent. So those have been my guiding principles, either consciously or unconsciously throughout. Risk has always been an element, but I'll be very honest, I don't think I knew I was taking a risk. When I moved to Singapore in the middle of a global recession, I didn't know I was taking a risk. I just moved because I was young and very brave. So that would hopefully be my answer.
Amazing. I think these are interesting points to keep in mind, especially for all the young creators and, marketers in our audience. Now let's pull back and talk about the subject at hand, right? I know you're very passionate about storytelling. You just mentioned it to us also. So I don't want to go really far back into the evolution of content marketing, but let's talk about how storytelling for brands has changed pre-pandemic and post-pandemic.
Yeah.
Do you think, of course, there's the platforms have possibly changed, but if you can talk about the art of storytelling, and how have brands been able to connect with their audiences over a period of the last 5 years. Let's not go way back, but let's talk about pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. What is the world of storytelling and content marketing looking like?
Yeah. So I think what the last 5 years have really changed for us, Natasha, is the fact that the audience has now become a really sort of vociferous part of your brand plan, if you will, or your brand marketing plan, or your content marketing plan, or your community building plan. I'm using these terms interchangeably very loosely, but at the end of the day, your consumer is actually now no longer sitting back. So what the last 5 years have done, I read this in a Forbes article, so I'm quoting them. These are not my terms. The curtains between the consumer, i.e., the audience for you, or the audience for me, or the consumer for someone else, and the brand has slowly lifted. So we are very, very close to each other. And I'll tell you, What has made that happen? Digitization has made that happen, right? Today, you can very quickly talk to a digital customer representative on a digital app or on social media. We are very quick to tag someone, even if that person is a very senior representative, or even on the social platforms of brands. We are very quickly able to call them out, or we are very quickly able to interact with them. So that is that one major shift that has happened, where back in the day, I remember my mom having a problem with some Johnson's baby sort of stuff that she had ordered for us, and having to wait for almost like 3 4 months for them to respond. And respond they did. They responded, and they sent a whole kit back to her saying, we're so sorry, and this is 6 months worth of supply. But that process has now sort of really just changed. So the curtains and the distance has diminished between brands and their audiences. That's change number one in the last 5 years, as you put it, sort of necessitated by the hyper digitization that has happened, especially in the last 2 years, thanks to the pandemic that you bring up. Also necessitated by the absolute proliferation of the social media channels, right? The second thing is the absolute participative nature of the community or the audiences, if you will. There was a Talk Walker report that I recently had the honor of participating in, and they asked me for a small quote. And I remember saying that, your consumer is the Trinity now. They are creating the culture, and they are also consuming it, and they are also shaping it. All of it is happening in real time. It's not waiting for yesterday, today, or tomorrow. Literally today, they are consuming it, and the very next moment they are making it a meme, and the very next moment they are making it trending on Twitter. That's how powerful your consumers become in the last 5 years, like you rightly put it, right? So now, what's happened, especially, let's focus on the last 2 years, as you have rightly asked. So this is the trend in the last 5 years. In the last 2 years, I think what's happened, at least what I've noticed, is the following 5 or 6 things. One is, I think brands have been forced to think about being a little more or a whole lot more authentic. Uh, the need to have a very genuine, what we call TOV, or tone of voice, right? I think being fake gets caught out very quickly, especially because I talked about the curtains being raised between audiences and their brands. Remember that we are now very closely talking to each other. That's number one. Number two, brands now in their storytelling or in their content marketing have to have a very clear message, what they stand for. They can no longer convolute or confuse the message. That's number two. Number three, and I'm going to be very careful as I say this, in India, especially after I returned in 2019, I noticed this very obvious trend of brands wanting to pick a social cause just because. There was a lot of social marketing that was happening, especially using content marketing as a tool. My request, and I saw that diminishing over the last 2 years, and brands really being called out if their cause that they picked was just for the sake of advertising and it wasn't genuine. Your consumers can see through it, right? So ask yourself if you have the agency or the permission to pick up a cause that you have picked up. That's number three. Number four, and this is going to come like a bit of a jolt to a lot of people maybe in the audience. Do not pick a social platform just because it exists. You don't have to be, as a brand, be on Reels because every other brand is on Reels, or you are, or they are on Triller or on Takarak. By the way, I love all these platforms. I think they are great. My point here is, go where your consumers are. Be hyper targeted in the stories that you are telling. For example, a particular story probably need a Reels or a Triller, or, for example, a Takatak, but a particular story doesn't. So find the right platforms for your stories. How will you find them? You will find where your audiences are, not the other way around. Number five, create genuine value for consumers. I should have said that the first. That's the ground rule of any content marketing or any storytelling. Why do we listen to stories? Why are stories different from advertising? Because stories create value. You want to listen to a story, you hear an advertisement. Do you see the fine difference between the two? An ad informs you, a story creates a value, it tells you something more than an ad. And lastly, point number six, because there are always 6 points for me, it is not about the brand, guys. It is about the consumers. So lean into what is it that the consumers want and give them that in your stories. So I'd say, Natasha, to your question, these would be the 6 things that I have seen brands at least evolve when it comes to their storytelling. But a lot of it has become really hyper necessitated in the last 2 years thanks to the hyper digitization. 40 million new consumers have joined the internet. So the pace of it has just gone 40x.
Yeah, and I think these points are fabulous because they're also guideposts for brands, right? I think
Yeah,
it's not just what has changed, it's also what needs to actually become part of the culture of an organization, of a brand. It's the cornerstone of content marketing as we know it, right? All of these
100%.
six points. Fabulous. So moving on, I mean, we spoke about a bit about storytelling. What I would love from you, because you're so good at this DIY kind of 6 point stuff. I would love to know what are the three rules to bear in mind when, as an individual or a brand, you're devising a content marketing strategy.
Okay, I think I gave away a couple of those in my last answer. Um, Three rules. Honestly, the three ground rules that I always keep in mind is it's not about you, it's about them. Shocking, right? Because as a brand storyteller, you're always like, brand ko kya chahiye? What is the brand message? That's great. I know you're paid to talk about the brand, but the ground rule is being audience first. What is it that your audience wants to hear? What are they talking about? So, audience centricity is very important. So, number one, how are you creating value for the audience, right? That comes from putting the audience at the heart of it. So, the biggest brands succeed. I'm going to quote one of my favorite brands of all time. You've heard me speak about it. Anyone in the audience, if you have had the misfortune of hearing me at any other forum, you've heard me speak about Nike on and off. Everything that Nike does is they put the consumer at the heart of it. Every consumer can be an athlete, right? Am I an athlete? God, no. I work out 5 days a week. I think I'm an athlete, but Nike makes me feel like I'm an athlete, right? Now, that's that. It's the consumer centricity. So, are you putting the consumer at the heart of your content marketing? If you're not, you are not going to create value. So, value is number one. Number two, relevance. Relevance to your consumers. Is it relevant in today's day and age? Now, that's where I said, I think in the last answer as well, to be very connected to your consumer is extremely important, right? To putting a ear to the ground. It was much more difficult, guys, when I did my first job at Unilever. I used to spend days on the road listening to consumers when, outside of Lucknow, when I was a Breeze brand manager, as a little brand manager, I used to, form trends panel, just really understanding what consumers want and stuff like that, right? Today, you have this beautiful thing called social listening. And yet, if you don't know what's relevant to your consumers, too bad. Find out, listen to them, mine your comments for real sentiments. You can do that. So finding what's relevant. Number three, shocking. It has to be consistent. It is not a one hit wonder, right? So I remember when I did my first content marketing gig, and like Natasha said, it was not called content marketing at that point of time. um, I remember having to sell to the board of directors at the company in Singapore when I was hired to do that. And they said, how long do you want to do this for? Like this thing that you're doing? I said, what do you mean? They said, well, how long? How many weeks? How many months? I said, it's consistent, right? Like it can't be for just weeks. They said, what do you mean? Like, what is your advertisement plan? I said, it's not advertising, it is content marketing. So, therefore, the C, so value, relevance, consistency. If you can remember VRC, those are my three principles that I follow. So, for anything, whether that's a telecom company, whether that's a broadcast company, whether that's a consumer tech company, or whether that's a beautiful entertainment company, I think if I apply that framework, it works across all of it beautifully, Natasha. So I'd say valuable, relevance, and consistency has stood in good stead. But remember, the joy of it comes if you put the consumer at the heart of it and layer the brand over it. Consumer को center में डाल दिया, but if it's not adding up to the narrative of what the brand wants to do, then so you'll get fired. So I'm not asking you to do one at the cost of the other.
So this is exactly what I was looking for. Your three great points. Um, so this is the Pashi. My next question is actually, most people associate content marketing, content creation as obviously a very creative field, right? And
Yeah.
creativity is very intuition based, and there's a lot of freedom and all of that. And now we're in a world where everything needs to be backed by data, right?
Mm.
So there's a lot of analytics, there's a lot of data. So as a creative person, or as someone venturing into content marketing who sees themselves as a creative person, how does one strike that balance? And how do you think, where does which part of the role, where does it end, right? Where does the creativity begin and end, and where does the data start and end? How do you balance the two?
Okay. So I mean, Natasha and I've spoken before. So shock value, right? I love shock value, risk and shock, two of my USPs. So imagine, guys, for a second, creative people, all of you are creative people. I'm also half creative, right? I have a right side of the brain that's semi-functional. How about if I tell you that the two are not at odds at all, data and creativity, right? So let me tell you my personal point of view. Take it with a pinch of salt, see if it works for you. So the way I have looked at data is, remember, I'm a literature graduate, okay? So this is a literature graduate who used to be a somewhat fantastic debater, like a general secretary of her college, did the things and then walked into Unilever where like fully got bombarded by data left, right, and center, right? So data is, so I had to learn how to love data, right? So how do you do that? So here's a couple of hacks, if you will, I'll give you. Data is directional, okay? It is a compass, it is not a roadmap. So it is directional. You need to mine it for insights. Remember what I said. Today, you have the benefit of social insights, right? As creators, as content creators, my suggestion to you is don't battle it. See what it's trying to tell you, okay? Maybe it's indicative of a consumer trend or of a habit that's morphing or that's changing. Maybe, just maybe, your creative instincts actually don't need to battle with it, but can be better informed by it. And actually, your content that you're creating, in your case, if a lot of you are content creators, or if a lot of you are marketing strategists or marketing professionals like me, they can just be better equipped with it, right? That's point number one. Point number two, however, there is something to be said about taking creative risks. And God knows I have taken quite a few of them. None of us would be where we are if we didn't. And they are going to keep you up at night if you are going to take some creative risks, right? So here's what I'm going to say. If you are confident, and I'll tell you where that confidence comes from, it comes from a place of experience. It comes from a place of knowing your consumers very, very, very well. It comes from a place of knowing your brand very well. It comes from a place of knowing your art and your craft very well. I'll go and say this: go ahead and take that creative risk, because, like Oscar Wilde once said, that an idea without an element of danger is actually not an idea at all. Now, here's my third point. So, we have said that data is directional, so use it to mine for insights. Then we have said, on the other hand, go ahead and take that risk if you feel it's the right thing to do. Feel, but your feelings are based on experience, right? Now, how do we bring them together? I'll ask you to ask one last question. I think the objective of why you want to take a creative risk has to be very, very clear, especially if you are at the helm of a really large, or let me correct that. Even if you are at the helm of a small brand, or your own brand, a brand is a brand is a brand. A brand is a responsibility. Remember that. A brand is a responsibility. It's a relationship. Even as a content creator, I know that some of you are content creators. You have a huge relationship towards your followers, right? You have built a brand, and for a minute, don't mistake it that you can ruin it by one or two things that you know. So if you are going to take that risk, the third question you got to ask yourself is, what will it achieve for you, or for the brand that you are helming, or for the brand that you have created for yourself? What are you seeking to take the risk for? Because if a big or a small or a medium sized brand is at stake, the risk will either pay off big dividends or make huge losses. So let me tell you, from the point of view of someone who's worked with big and medium sized brands, the seemingly spontaneous big creative risks that we all clap no, that win awards, of the iconic brands that we all admire, are all very thought through and quite calibrated. So the reality of the situation is, if you're going to take risks, these are the three things to keep in mind. Data is not your enemy. It may not be your best friend, but it's directional. It's a compass, not a roadmap. Secondly, if you really believe in the creative risk, ask yourself, why is it that you believe in it? and ask yourself what it's going to do. And thirdly, ask yourself, do the payoff versus the dividends, the dividends versus the risk analysis. Ask yourself, what is it going to do for the brand that I am in charge of, or the brand that I have created? Because as content creators, I know a lot of my friends are content creators, so I'm not just speaking not from experience. So when they come to me and say, I'm just going to do this, because it's cool, I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but you have 500,000 followers, close to 1 million followers. You have a huge responsibility. Do you want to ruin that? You've built a relationship. So take that risk, but take, how do I say this, take a conscious calibrated risk, if you will. That's my answer.
Okay, so instead of walking that tightrope, I guess it's time to befriend data and
A
uh,
hundred percent, a hundred
yeah.
percent. Like, I can tell you, when I walked into Unilever, reams and reams of Excel sheet, man. Like primary sales, secondary sales. I'm like, what are
Hmm.
these? But then
Hmm.
you get used to it, and it, like anything in life, you just say, okay, I'm going to take a stab at it. And then
Hmm.
now I love it. I can go hours into dashboards and say, is that so now, friend? What are you
Hmm.
trying to tell me?
Hmm.
So,
Great. So I think we ought to have one OTT related question
oh
in
no,
our
can
in
we
our
not?
but we'll keep it. I mean, it's not specific to the brand that you work for, but I just want to know, every major channel, every publisher is now moving into the OTT space, right? So how are consumer preferences different on emerging OTT platforms versus traditional TV channels? I'm sure, talking about data, and insights, this at the back of your hand. So we'd love to know a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's something that we think about all day. I think a couple of things, Natasha. I think one thing is that the OTT platforms all over the world, not just in India, especially in India, actually, four or five things have changed. One is just the wide range of content and stories that have just become available to us, right? Our world has opened up. When I say wide range, I mean that today we watch stories of people from all over the world, people that we never thought we'd meet, places that we never thought we'd travel to, um, food that we never thought we'd eat. Peruvian food. Like, I was watching a show on Peruvian food. I'm like, whoa, that looks really good. I tried cooking it. It was disaster. Not recommended, guys, unless you are like a chef, which I'm not. Cooking is not therapeutic. Cleaning is. And just things that you never thought, hobbies that you never thought you'd pick up. So the wide range of beautiful things and stories that you think you never be exposed to. Your mind just opens up, right? That's number one. Number two, quality of storytelling, right? I do think that the quality of storytelling has gone up. When I say quality, I mean the art, craft, cinematography, production qualities, just the thinking. I think even the Indian audience has begun to expect more, and they will not settle for anything lesser. So, why is that? You remember the curtains diminishing? Now, the minute you give them something lesser, they call you out on it. They say, sorry, ye kya bakwas tha? Like, it's not as per your last season. Now that conversation has also begun to happen, right? Can you remember the days of cable TV? I hope you guys are not that young. I think you remember the days of cable TV. God knows I died, man. Like, what were those? Like, I gave up. And then when HBO happened, and you're like, oh my goodness me, like, this is like, I think I almost became a lawyer. I used to watch like Law and Order so much, and I almost took up that career. Thank God, I would have sucked at it, right? But like that, right? Second is, I think, the third is, I think, genre bending stuff. You watch interactive content, you watch stuff that you can not put in a box, right? I watched something the other day, and I was like, what is this? Is this romance? Is this thriller? Is this psychotic? Wait, so I came up with a full one line of what this is, and I still couldn't put it in a box, right? So these are qualitative. Let me now talk about a few quantitative aspects, or rather, not qualitative aspects. The demand, the consumption patterns have completely changed. Appointment viewing is slowly going out of the window. You and I can sit and watch it anytime, anywhere, in any device. So Natasha wants to take a little break from her extremely exhaustive mommy duties. Child has gone to sleep. Can she watch a snackable content for 15 minutes? Yes, right? Can she pick it up and go whenever the child takes the next nap? Yes, she can. So that habit, where are you watching it? Don't need to sit, no? Can watch it on your laptop, can watch it on your phone. So any device, right? The third consumption pattern is the size of the content that you watch. No longer half an hour, can be 15 minutes. Love Death Robots. 6 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, my God, right? Now let me the format that we spoke about, interactive content, AR, VR, right? Going wild with formats. And the last bit I'd say in this bucket is just I think that's just still evolving, at least in this part of the world. Learning to pay for content. I think with cable, we have all gotten used to paying very little or next to nothing for 900 channels, and that's something that I hope changes, because it costs a bomb to make good content. So I think slowly, at least in APAC, as in the rest of the world, I think we need to start appreciating that it costs money, as it is. It costs money to go see movies in the theater. So it should cost money to see good stuff at our homes as well. So I'd say this qualitative, and so that's how it's changed, I think, the landscape between traditional and OTT.
Talking about paying for content, someone just asked on this huge WhatsApp group that I'm a part of whether anyone in the group has a subscription to an OTT platform so that their kid can watch a movie that they want to watch. Anyway, okay, so we've got a bunch of questions, Dipashree. Some of them, of course, want you to decode everything about Netflix's market strategy. I'm sorry, you're going to have to, like most good marketing campaigns, this is going to remain a mystery to us, and you can do your own research. But there are a lot of people who also want you to write their content strategy for them. But I don't think we have time for that. Sorry, guys. But there are also a lot of interesting questions, and I'm going to pick some for you.
Thanks, Natasha, for being the gatekeeper.
Yeah. So, what is the best way to create a buyer persona based on target audience available on different platforms? This is Gurleen Kaur. She's a content marketer, and I guess her brand is called Digital Kaur. Yeah.
Hi, Gurleen. What is the best way to create a buyer's persona based on target audience? Wow, this is a really great question, Gurleen. I actually, I wish to really give you a good answer of this, and I could have. I actually did a boot camp on content marketing with Antwork, and I actually did a full masterclass on this. So I'm just going to try and tell you the buyer's persona uh, is a fairly scientific process, right? And there's a 5 or 6 step process in which you can sort of build a buyer's persona, but I'll try and simplify this for you. The idea is that if you have available data uh, of your target audience available on different platforms, try and prioritize. It's always important to prioritize who is your lowest hanging fruit, right? You'll know this the best for your audience. I hope you have an intuitive understanding of what is the lowest hanging fruit for you. So there are two ways to look at it: short term audience and long term audience, right? So let's say you identified, you say that for now, I want to go for the short term audience. Short term audience can anywhere be between 6 months to 1 year. And for next year, which is 2022, halfway through 2022, I want to go after my larger audience base, right? Now, the easiest way to do this is my recommendation. There are many other buyers persona. You can go to CMI, Content Marketing Institute. They have some of the best buyer persona templates available for you to look at. You can either follow them, and what you can do is, a buyer's persona is actually a fictitious account that you create for your target audience. Okay, so let's say, for example, your audience behaves differently on different platforms. Okay, don't get thrown by that. So your audience, let's say, spends uh, uh, hours on Instagram but has begun to spend a lot lesser on Facebook. That's just consumption pattern change. You have to just find the right platform for that audience, right? So what you have to map, therefore, what that buyer persona will tell you is, what does that buyer persona do? So let's call her Simran for that, right? What does Simran do? How much time does Simran spend on each of those platforms? How much does Simran earn? I don't know how you can get that data, maybe just by lifestyle indicators. How much does, what are Simran's interests? and then you have to overlay each on those to see, I don't know what your product is, so where you are going to target. So my guess is if she's spending a lot of time on Instagram, you will then have to find the best way to start having a conversation with Simran on Instagram. So Simran is a lookalike for a lot of your audience on Instagram. So I'm giving you a fairly skatey, superficial answer in the 5 minutes that I have. But basically, what you need to do is A, try and understand who your different audience sets are. That's number one. B, uh, 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 f- always and always understand short-term audience, long-term audience, and create buyer personas for both. Really great resources all over the internet for buyer persona templates. I go to a CMI, Marketing Institute, and they have some really great templates. Use whatever works for you, Gurleen. I hope that helps.
I'm sure it does. So we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try and take a few more questions. Here's one. What's one book or course you would recommend to someone who just started out their content marketing journey? This is Falguni. She's a content marketer with Hubilo.
Wow, you're asking someone who's never done a book or a course. I'm fully self-taught, guys. Um, wow, that's a tough one, Falguni. Pawan sending you a voucher for that, and you can use that to buy that book. Falguni, I don't, I don't want to give you a superficial answer. Let me think about it, and I will give you a good answer. But as starters, I will highly recommend the. I'm just going to type it here for everyone. Content Marketing Institute. I started off with that. They are a little academic, and you might get a little like, oh my God, they're so boring. But like, really, they have their basics right. So they are a blog. And then the other blog I will recommend is this. So the first one is a little academic, and the second one has a lot of really cool resources for you to get your head around. But connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will try and find you a good book. I am super self-taught, and I read a lot of stuff on Fast Company, on Forbes, on Harvard Business Review. So guess I haven't read too many books.
Guys, so I can recommend a few if you want. This is
That's the
Open
guy.
Content Marketing
That's
by
Joe
the guy
Pulizzi.
who's actually founded Content Marketing Institute. And
There
since
you
I'm
have it.
sitting on my desk, I can. There's Be
Natasha to the
Social.
rescue.
Yeah, and I'm a books person. I read a lot. So this is Be Social, and this is Ashish Chopra's Fast, Cheap, and Viral. And okay, finally, Made to Stick. So I can drop these in the comments somewhere, but these are great marketing books and talk about content marketing in a very sort of systematic way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take one last question because Pawan is going to otherwise not allow me to do this ever again. Wow. I had found one which I. Yeah. So this was also going to be one of my questions. Where do you see the content marketing space in the next 10 to 15 years? What are the possibilities? And what is the future for content marketers like himself? He's a graphic designer, but this is very useful for content marketers in general.
Hmm. Honest answer. I think, see, when I started out with Singtel, actually, I mean, I didn't start out with Singtel. I started content marketing with Singtel back in 2013 in Singapore. Um, I was just like, what the hell is this, man? Like, I know marketing, I know content. They're asking me to marry it. Sure, glad I did stick with it, guys. I think it's going to be sexy because I think I'm not saying that advertising isn't cool. I think it's going to be super cool, but I do see the lines blurring. I think our patience for advertising is wearing out, right? Like, I love a good ad, but I love a great story even more, right?
Mm.
Uh, Remember, content marketing isn't a great story. It's great content strategy meets a great story, meets a really great content plan, and there's a whole lot of science in it. Like, thinking about it is a full-time job, right?
Mhm.
So I think the future is sexy, but here's my advice for aspiring content marketers: don't master one aspect of the job, master all aspects of it. Content marketing, like marketing, is a multifaceted job. It's not just design, it's not just writing, it's not just being able to tell a story. It's being
Mhm.
able to step back, take a full 30,000 feet view, and then say, if I have to tell a story for this brand, if I have to tell a story for this brand, if I have to make a full plan for this brand, will I be able to do it 4 years from now, 3 years
Mhm.
from now, 6 months from now, whatever is your timeline? If the answer is no, then I'd say upskill yourself. Why
Mhm.
do I think the future is sexy? Because everyone, from entertainment to fintech to edtech, everyone has finally realized the power of telling stories. Why? Because, like Seth Godin said, tribes are what matter now, right? What are tribes? Remember, tribes used to sit around fire to tell stories? And as humans, yes, we will be targeted by ads and they'll become more efficient and more effective. But what leaves a lasting impression is stories, right? When someone tells you a story, you take something back, you ingest it. With an ad, you are informed, and that's the difference. When you become master storytellers, that's an art. But when you become master strategists and marry the two, you become a really great content marketer. So there's no running away from the science of it. So
Mhm.
it's great if you can become a great designer and a great storyteller, but if it's great if you can marry the two and become a great, data scientist along with it. So my
Mhm.
advice is, it's going to be sexy, it's going to be super fun, but you have got to learn the tricks of the entire trade, not just a part of it.
Yeah, we've got our work cut out for us, clearly. Lots to do in the next 10 to 15 years. Amazing. I think we're actually overshot by 4 minutes, but that's okay. I think it's been a great conversation. Thanks, Dipashree. It was such a pleasure as usual. And I think we have so many little nuggets of wisdom, a lot of clapping emojis coming there. Come on, guys,
Thank you, guys.
let's give it up for Dipashree. Woo, this is the
Thank
best
you
we
so
can
much.
do
Thank you.
in an online event. Thanks once again. Pawan,
Thank you so
how
much.
do we do this? Are we like over to you now?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dipashree. And I think very interesting questions some folks here had. And
Yeah,
don't worry, Natasha, I will still invite you next time also to host, even if you give
thank
away
you.
more Amazon vouchers here for our audience. But Dipashree, thank you so much for doing this with us today here. I think it was very, very insightful and candid also at the same time. We felt like we were listening to somebody like we know from a long time. So I think very, very interesting to have you. And thank you so much, everyone who was asking your questions in the chat. Please feel free to ask as many questions as you can in the next sessions. Also, you might get lucky about the Amazon vouchers in the next sessions. Maybe on stage two, next is coming up Roxanne from the Instagram team, where she's talking about how to use Reels to elevate your social media strategy. So that will start in the next 2 minutes. Please head over to that session and we'll see you all over there. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys. Thank you. Have a
Thanks.
great one.
Bye.